Welcome, weary traveller, to the Drowsy Jester. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps your mind has been restless, or perhaps you're simply curious about how ordinary people lived their days centuries ago. Either way, you're in the right place. Tonight, we're going to walk through a complete day in the life of a medieval peasant, from the moment their eyes open in the darkness to the moment they close again at night. If these gentle journeys through history bring you peace, consider liking and subscribing. It helps other restless souls find their way here too. Now, let yourself settle in. Take a slow breath and let the story begin. The rooster hasn't crowed yet. That's the first thing you notice as consciousness slowly returns. Outside, the world is still dark, that deep pre-dawn darkness that feels heavier than regular night. But your body knows it's time to wake. After years of rising before the sun, you don't need a rooster or a clock. Your muscles remember the rhythm. You lie still for a moment, feeling the straw mattress beneath you. It's not comfortable by any modern standard, but it's what you know. The straw rustles as you shift, and you can feel the rough linen of your bed sheet against your skin. In winter, there'd be wool blankets piled on top of you, but this is late summer, and the morning air is merely cool, not cold. The house around you is quiet, not silent, but quiet. You can hear your wife's steady breathing beside you. Somewhere in the darkness, one of your children murmurs in their sleep. The walls creak softly as they do every morning. This house is old, built by your grandfather's hands. Wattle and daub walls, a thatched roof, a packed dirt floor. It stood for 40 years and will probably stand for 40 more. You sit up slowly, careful not to wake your wife. She'll rise soon enough, but these few minutes of stillness before the day begins feel precious. Your back aches. It always aches these days. 35 years of farm work leaves its mark on a body, but the ache is familiar, almost comforting in its consistency. This is just how mornings feel. Your feet touch the packed earth floor, cold. Even in summer, the ground holds the night's chill. You feel around in the darkness for your shoes. Rough leather, worn soft in some places, developing holes in others. They'll need mending soon, but that's a problem for another day. Standing requires effort. Your knees protest. Your lower back reminds you of yesterday's work hauling grain sacks. But you stand anyway, because standing is what you do. Movement is what you do. Work is what you do. This is the rhythm of your life, and it's been the rhythm since you were old enough to walk behind a plough. The house consists of one main room, no separate bedrooms, no privacy as we understand it today. You and your wife sleep in one corner, your 3 children sleep together in another. The center of the room holds the hearth, cold now but still holding the faint smell of last night's fire. Along one wall are your few possessions. A wooden chest containing your second shirt, your wife's extra dress, the good linens you use for holy days. A table, rough-hewn but sturdy, a few stools, some cooking pots, a wooden bucket. That's about it. You make your way to the door, moving carefully in the darkness. Your hands know every inch of this space. You could navigate it blind, and essentially, that's what you're doing now. The door is rough wood, held closed by a simple latch. You lift it, and the door swings open on leather hinges that creak softly. Outside, the village is a collection of shadows, dark shapes of houses, darker shapes of trees, and above it all, stars. So many stars, more than you can count, more than you can comprehend. They've been there every morning of your life, and they'll be there every morning after you're gone. There's something comforting about that. The air smells of earth and animals and smoke from banked fires in other houses. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. The world is waiting for the sun, holding its breath in anticipation of another day. You walk a short distance from your house to relieve yourself. There's no indoor plumbing, no outhouse even, just a spot at the edge of your property where the ground is disturbed from regular use. It's not pleasant, but it's normal. This is how everyone lives. This is how everyone has always lived, as far as you know. The sky is beginning to change. Not light yet, but less dark. That deep black is shifting to dark blue on the eastern horizon. Soon the sun will rise, and with it, the village will wake. But for now, these moments belong to you alone. You stand there, watching the sky change, feeling the cool air on your face. In a few hours, you'll be sweating in the fields. But right now, you're just a man standing under the stars, watching another day begin. There's a quiet dignity in that, even if no one's watching to see it. The rooster crows. Finally. That harsh, proud sound that announces the coming day to anyone still sleeping. It's followed by other roosters from other houses, each one declaring their territory, their importance, their place in the morning ritual. You turn back toward your house. Through the open door, you can see movement now. Your wife is awake, stirring the ashes in the hearth, looking for embers that might have survived the night. She'll build up the fire for cooking breakfast. Simple work, but necessary. Everything about your life is necessary. Inside, you can see her more clearly now as the pre-dawn light grows stronger. Her name is Agnes, and she's been your wife for 15 years. You were married when she was 14 and you were 20. That's how it works in your world. Young marriages, hard work, and if God is merciful, enough children to help with the labor and care for you when you're old. She's already dressed. Women's clothing is simpler than you might imagine. A long linen shift that goes from neck to ankle. Over that, a wool dress, an apron to keep the dress clean. A head covering, always a head covering. Married women don't show their hair in public. That's just how things are. Good morning, she says softly. Her voice is still rough with sleep. Morning, you reply. The children? Still asleep. Let them rest a bit longer. You nod. The children work too, as soon as they're old enough to be useful. Your oldest son is 12, already putting in near adult hours during harvest time. Your middle child, a daughter of 9, helps her mother with household tasks and tends the kitchen garden. The youngest is only 5, still more trouble than help, but learning. Agnes has found a few live embers buried in the ash. She carefully adds kindling, blowing gently to encourage the flames. Fire is precious. Starting one from scratch with flint and steel is possible but time-consuming and frustrating. Keeping one alive through the night is easier, and that's what most people do. The fire in your hearth has been burning, in one form or another, for as long as you can remember. The flames catch, small at first, then growing as Agnes adds larger pieces of wood. The light flickers across the walls, creating shadows that dance and shift. The warmth spreads slowly, pushing back the morning chill. You have morning chores to attend to. Animals need feeding before you can feed yourself. That's the rule of farm life. The creatures that help you survive get taken care of first. Outside, the sky is definitely lighter now. Not sunrise yet, but that grey time when you can see shapes clearly, but colours haven't quite returned to the world. Other villagers are emerging from their houses. You can see smoke beginning to rise from chimneys. The village is waking up. Your animals are kept in a small structure attached to one side of your house. Nothing fancy. Wattle and daub walls like your house. A thatched roof that leaks when it rains hard. But it keeps the animals mostly dry and mostly warm, and that's what matters. You own 3 chickens, 1 pig, and 2 sheep. Not much, but more than some families have. The chickens provide eggs most days. The pig will be slaughtered in late autumn, providing meat for the winter. The sheep give wool for clothing, and occasionally a lamb that can be sold at market. The chickens come running when you open the door, clucking and pecking at your feet, hoping for grain. You scatter a handful of dried corn for them, watching as they fight over the kernels. Chickens have no manners, no sense of fairness. The strongest eat first, and the weak scramble for what's left. The pig grunts at you from its pen. It's a large animal now, fattening nicely on kitchen scraps and whatever it can root up when you let it forage in the woods. You dump a bucket of slop into its feeding trough, vegetable peelings, stale bread, bits of this and that. The pig doesn't care. It eats enthusiastically, making wet snorting sounds that would be disgusting if you weren't so used to them. The sheep barely acknowledge you. They're in their pen, chewing cud, staring at nothing the way sheep do. You check their water, make sure they have hay. In a few weeks, you'll need to move them to a different pasture. The grass in their current spot is getting sparse. But that's a future problem. Today has enough concerns of its own. By the time you return to the house, the sun is just breaking the horizon. Long shadows stretch across the village. Golden light touches the tops of trees. The world is transforming from grey to green and brown and gold. Another day, officially begun. Inside, Agnes has porridge cooking. Oat porridge, thick and filling. It's what you eat most mornings. Not because it's delicious, but because oats are cheap and filling, and you can make a lot of porridge from a little grain. She's added a pinch of salt to give it some flavour. On special days, there might be honey. But this isn't a special day. The children are awake now. Your son, William, is pulling on his shoes. Your daughter, Emma, is helping her mother with the cooking. The youngest, little Thomas, is rubbing sleep from his eyes and complaining that he's hungry. You'll eat soon enough, Agnes tells him. Be patient. But patience isn't a virtue 5-year-olds possess in abundance, he whines. She ignores him. This is a dance they do every morning. The porridge is ready. Agnes ladles it into wooden bowls. 5 bowls for 5 people. There are no individual portions carefully measured. Everyone gets roughly the same amount, though you and William get slightly more because you'll be doing the hardest physical labor today. You eat standing up. There aren't enough stools for everyone to sit comfortably, and besides, sitting feels like a waste of time when there's work to do. The porridge is hot, plain, filling. It tastes like every breakfast you've eaten for your entire life. Comfort through familiarity. There's also bread. Yesterday's bread, already going stale, but still edible when dipped in the porridge to soften it. Bread and porridge. This is peasant food. Simple, cheap, sustaining. You don't expect variety. You don't expect flavor. You expect to fill your stomach so you can work. Emma gets a small piece of cheese with her breakfast. She's growing, getting thin, and Agnes worries. The cheese has some fat in it, some richness that plain porridge lacks. It's not much, but it's something. As you eat, Agnes talks about the day ahead. The garden needs weeding, beans need picking. She wants to finish spinning the wool she's been working on all week. There's bread to bake, washing to do if the weather holds. Always work, never-ending work. You tell her you'll be in the north field today. The rye needs cutting. The weather's been dry, which is good for harvest, but means you need to move quickly before rain comes and ruins everything. William will come with you. Between the two of you, you might get half the field done by sunset. The sun is fully up now. The village is alive with activity. You can hear voices, animals, the sound of tools being gathered. Everyone's day is beginning. Everyone has work to do. This is how it's been for generations. This is how it will be for generations to come. You finish your porridge and set the bowl aside. Agnes will wash it later. Right now, there are more important things to attend to. You gather your tools, a sickle for cutting grain, a rake for gathering. William gets his own smaller sickle. He's been working the harvest for 3 years now, and he's getting good at it. Before you leave, you pause at the door. Agnes is already cleaning up from breakfast, moving efficiently through tasks she's done 10,000 times before. Emma is helping, learning the patterns that will define her own life someday. Little Thomas is playing in the corner with a wooden horse you carved for him last winter. This is your family. This is your life. It's not grand, it's not easy, but it's yours, and there's value in that. You step out into the morning sunlight, William beside you. The north field is a 15-minute walk from your house. The path is well worn, packed hard by countless feet over countless years. You know every rock, every root, every dip in the ground. Other men are heading to their fields too. You nod at neighbors, exchange brief greetings. How's your father doing? Better, thanks be to God. Think it'll rain. Not today, sky's too clear. Small talk, but it serves a purpose. It reminds you that you're part of something larger than yourself, part of a community that shares labor, shares struggles, shares this life. The fields stretch out before you in strips. Not large, continuous plots like modern farms, but narrow strips assigned to different families. You have 3 strips in the north field, 2 in the south field, 1 in the west field. That's how the land is divided in your village. Everyone gets some good soil, some poor soil, some wet ground, some dry. It's meant to be fair, and mostly it is. Your strips look good this year. The rye is tall, golden, heavy with grain. This has been a favorable summer. Enough rain in spring to help the crops grow, enough sun in summer to ripen them properly. A good harvest means you'll be able to pay your rent to the Lord, keep enough grain for your family, and maybe, if you're lucky, sell some at market. A bad harvest means hunger, possibly worse than hunger. You've lived through bad years, everyone has. Years when the rain never stops and the grain rots in the field. Years when drought turns everything brown and brittle. Years when you have to choose between paying the rent and feeding your children. Those years teach you to be grateful when things go well, but this year looks promising. Thank God for that. You begin cutting. The motion is familiar. Grasp a handful of stalks with your left hand. Slice through them with the sickle in your right hand. Lay the cut grain carefully on the ground. Repeat. Grasp, slice, lay down. Grasp, slice, lay down. Over and over and over. William works beside you, falling into the same rhythm. He's young, and his back will ache tomorrow. But he's learning. This is his future. These fields, this work, this life. Unless something remarkable happens, he'll be doing this same labor when he's 35, just as you are now. The sun climbs higher, the morning cool burns away. Soon you're sweating. The work is hard, repetitive, demanding. Your hands will blister, even though they're already calloused. Your back will scream. Your arms will tremble with fatigue, but you keep going because the grain won't cut itself, and if it doesn't get cut, you don't eat. This is the reality of medieval peasant life. Not knights and castles and grand adventures, just work. Endless, exhausting, essential work. Other men are in their strips now, all of you cutting grain, all of you racing against weather and time. In the distance, you can hear women singing. They're in another field, gathering up the cut grain and bundling it into sheaves. The work requires coordination. Men cut, women gather, everyone works together to bring in the harvest before it's too late. The singing helps pass the time. Old songs, passed down from grandmothers to mothers to daughters. Songs about love and loss and seasons changing. Songs about hardship and hope. You can't make out all the words from this distance, but the melody carries across the fields, weaving through the morning air like a thread connecting everyone together. You work through the morning without stopping. There's no clock to watch, no specific break time. You work until the sun is high overhead and your stomach is growling too loudly to ignore. Then you straighten up, feeling your spine crack in several places, and look at what you've accomplished. Maybe a quarter of your first strip is cut. At this rate, you'll have all 3 strips finished in 4 days. Maybe 5 if your back gives out. Then you'll need to bind the grain into sheaves, stack them to dry, thresh them to separate the grain from the chaff, winnow away the waste, and finally store what's left. Weeks of work, all to fill a few sacks with grain. But those sacks mean survival. They mean bread for your family. They mean you can pay what you owe and keep what you've earned. That makes every aching muscle worth it. Agnes arrives with lunch. She's carrying a basket covered with a cloth, Emma walking beside her carrying a jug. This is the midday meal, eaten in the field because going home would waste too much time. The basket contains bread and cheese and onions, simple food but heartier than breakfast. The bread is fresh, baked this morning while you were working. It's made from barley and rye mixed together, coarse and dark, but still warm from the oven. You tear off a piece and hand it to William, then take a piece for yourself. The cheese is hard and salty, made from sheep's milk. You cut slices with your knife, the same knife you use for everything from cutting food to repairing tools. It's one of your most valuable possessions, that knife. Your father gave it to you when you got married, and his father gave it to him. Someday you'll give it to William. The onions are from the garden, sweet and crisp. You bite into one like an apple, feeling the sharp flavor fill your mouth. Onions don't cost anything except the space to grow them, and they add something to the plainness of bread and cheese. Emma has brought ale in the jug. Not strong ale, just small beer, weak enough that even children can drink it safely. Water from the well can make you sick, everyone knows that. But ale, even weak ale, is safer. Plus it has some nutrition in it, some sustenance beyond just liquid. You drink deeply, feeling the cool ale wash away the dust in your throat. It tastes of grain and yeast and the particular flavor that marks your wife's brewing. Every woman brews slightly differently, and you can taste the difference. Agnes sits with you while you eat, though she doesn't take much for herself. She's already eaten back at the house. Emma takes a piece of bread and wanders off to look at wildflowers growing at the field's edge. William eats mechanically, already thinking about the afternoon's work ahead. How's the Northfield looking? Agnes asks. Good, better than last year. If the weather holds, we'll have a fine harvest. God willing, you agree. This is faith woven into daily language. Not grand theological statements, but small acknowledgements that much of life is beyond your control. You can work hard, plan carefully, do everything right, and still have rain destroy your crops or disease kill your animals. So you do your best and trust that God will provide. What else can you do? Agnes tells you about her morning. The beans are coming in well. She picked 2 baskets full, and there will be more tomorrow. She set some aside to dry for winter, but tonight you'll have fresh beans with dinner, a treat. Emma found a bird's nest in the hedge, she says. 3 eggs. She wanted to bring them home, but I told her to leave them be. You nod. Eggs are valuable, but robbing nests isn't how you manage resources. The birds will hatch, and next year there will be more birds, more nests, more eggs. Taking everything now means having nothing later. Even a peasant understands sustainability, though you don't call it that. The break doesn't last long, maybe 20 minutes, just enough time to eat, drink, rest your back briefly. Then it's back to work. Agnes and Emma gather the basket and jug and head home. You and William return to cutting grain. The afternoon is harder than the morning. The sun is hot now, beating down without mercy. Sweat runs into your eyes. The sickle handle grows slippery in your grip. Your back, which merely ached this morning, now feels like someone's driving nails into your spine with every bend and straighten. But you keep going. Grasp, slice, lay down. Grasp, slice, lay down. The rhythm is meditative in its way. Your mind wanders while your body works. You think about next week's tasks. About the roof that needs patching before winter. About William's future and whether you'll be able to afford a small piece of land for him when he marries. You think about your own father, dead these 5 years now. He worked these same fields, stood in this same spot, cutting grain just like you're doing now. His father before him did the same. Your son will do the same. There's a continuity to that, a connection across generations that's both comforting and slightly suffocating. William is flagging. You can see it in the way his movements are getting slower, sloppier. He's young and strong, but he doesn't have the endurance yet. That comes with years of practice, and he hasn't had those years yet. Take a moment, you tell him. Catch your breath. He straightens up gratefully, wiping sweat from his face. Thank you, Father. You keep working while he rests. Not to show off, just to keep the progress steady. Every stalk cut is one less to do tomorrow. Every bundle laid out is one step closer to finishing. This is how you think about work, not as an overwhelming whole, but as individual tasks that can be completed one at a time. After a few minutes, William returns to cutting. He's learned this lesson from you. Rest when you need to, but don't rest too long. The work won't do itself. The afternoon wears on. The sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon. Shadows lengthen. The heat becomes less oppressive. Your body has moved past pain into a kind of numb exhaustion where you just keep moving because stopping would be harder than continuing. Other workers are finishing too. You can see men straightening up, gathering their tools, heading toward the village. The daylight is fading, and there's no point working in darkness. The grain will still be there tomorrow. You take one last look at what you've accomplished. Both strips are half finished now. Good progress for one day. Tomorrow you'll finish them, and then start on the third. By the end of the week, if all goes well, the cutting will be done. Come on, you say to William. Let's go home. The walk back feels longer than the walk out this morning. Every step reminds you of muscles you've been using all day. Your legs are heavy, your feet ache. Your shoulders are stiff. You're 35 years old, and you feel ancient. William walks beside you, silent. He's exhausted too, but he's learning what it means to be a man in your world. It means working until your body wants to quit, and then working some more. It means providing for your family no matter how tired you are. It means doing what needs to be done, day after day after day. The village comes into view, smoke rising from chimneys, the smell of cooking fires, the sound of children playing in the last light of day. Home. Agnes is outside your house when you arrive, drawing water from the well. She sees you coming and smiles. That smile, after 15 years of marriage, still makes something warm bloom in your chest. She's tired too. You can see it in the set of her shoulders, the lines around her eyes. But she smiles anyway because you're home safe, and another day has been survived. Water's heating for washing, she says. Dinner will be ready soon. You nod your thanks. Washing is a luxury, but after a day in the fields, it's a necessary one. Agnes has filled a large pot with water and hung it over the fire. Not a full bath. You don't have enough water or fuel for that, but enough to wash your face and hands and arms to get the worst of the dirt and sweat off. William goes first. He strips off his shirt and splashes water over his head and torso, scrubbing with a rough cloth. The water runs brown with dirt. When he's done, you take your turn. The water is warm, almost hot, and it feels glorious against your aching muscles. Agnes has made pottage for dinner. It's what she makes most nights. A thick stew of vegetables and grain, cooked slowly all day in a pot hanging over the fire. Today's pottage has the beans she picked this morning, along with onions and cabbage and barley and some herbs from the garden. No meat. Meat is for special occasions or when something dies unexpectedly. But even without meat, pottage is filling and warm and exactly what you need after a long day. She also has fresh bread, and there's butter, actual butter, churned from the sheep's milk this morning. This is a good meal. Not fancy, but good, substantial. The kind of meal that reminds you why you work so hard. The family gathers around the table. Not sitting, there still aren't enough stools, but standing together, gathered around this rough wooden surface that serves as the center of your home. Agnes ladles pottage into bowls. You tear bread and share it around. The butter is spread thick, a rare indulgence that makes everyone smile. Little Thomas chatters about his day. He helped his mother in the garden, he says proudly. He pulled weeds and carried water and did lots of important work. Agnes catches your eye and smiles. Important work indeed, her expression says. Emma talks about the bird's nest, the 3 small eggs she saw, how she wanted to touch them but didn't because her mother said no. You praise her for her restraint. Following rules, even when you don't want to, is an important lesson. William is quiet, too tired for conversation. You understand. After your first full day of harvest work, you were too exhausted to do anything but eat and sleep. He's earned his silence. The pottage is good, thick enough to stick to your ribs, flavored with herbs and the richness of the beans. You eat 2 full bowls, sopping up the last of it with bread. William eats 3 bowls. Growing boys have appetites that seem impossible to fill. After dinner, there are a few more chores. Agnes needs help moving a heavy sack of grain. William needs to check on the animals one more time. Emma helps clear the table and wash the bowls. Even little Thomas has a task, bringing in an armful of kindling for tomorrow's fire. But as the last light fades from the sky, the work finally slows. This is the quiet time, the brief period between dinner and bed when families gather and rest. Some people sing, some tell stories, some just sit together in companionable silence. Your family falls into the last category. You're all too tired for entertainment. But being together, being warm, being fed, that's enough. That's everything, really. Agnes sits by the fire, working on her spinning. The spindle turns rhythmically, turning raw wool into thread. She'll use the thread to weave cloth, and the cloth will become clothes for the family. This is how it works. Everything you have, you make yourselves or trade for with other villagers. William has already fallen asleep on his pallet, still in his clothes, too exhausted to undress. You leave him be. The rest will do him good. Emma and Thomas are playing quietly in the corner, some game involving stones and sticks that make sense to them. Their voices are soft, mindful of their sleeping brother. You sit on a stool, the only moment all day you've been off your feet, and feel your body slowly relaxing. The aches are still there, the tiredness is still there, but there's a satisfaction too. You worked hard, you accomplished something, your family is fed. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Outside, the village is settling into its evening rhythm. You can hear a dog barking somewhere, voices calling children inside, the sound of a door closing. These are the sounds of ordinary life, ordinary people ending ordinary days. There's a peace in that ordinariness. Agnes finishes her spinning and puts the spindle away. She banks the fire, covering the flames with ash, so embers will survive until morning. Emma gathers up little Thomas and helps him get ready for bed. The day is ending. You stand up, every joint protesting, and make your way to your sleeping corner. The straw mattress has never looked more inviting. You lie down, feeling your body sink into it, feeling the tension slowly drain away. Agnes lies down beside you. The children are settled in their corner. The house is dark except for the faint glow of banked embers in the hearth. Tomorrow will be another day just like this one. More grain to cut, more work to do, more aches and pains and small triumphs. This is your life. This is what it means to be a medieval peasant. Not adventure or romance or anything grand. Just work and family and the steady rhythm of seasons passing. But as you close your eyes, listening to your family breathing around you, feeling Agnes's warmth beside you, you think that maybe this is enough. Maybe this simple life, this hard life, has its own kind of richness. Maybe being able to feed your family, keep them safe, teach them what they need to know, maybe that's its own kind of success. Sleep comes quickly when you're this tired. No tossing and turning, no restless thoughts, just darkness and rest and the deep sleep of someone who's earned it through honest labor. Outside, the stars wheel slowly across the sky. The village sleeps, the fields wait for tomorrow's work, and somewhere in the distance, a rooster is already dreaming of dawn. The rhythm of medieval peasant life was built on seasons, on cycles that repeated year after year with comforting predictability. What you experience today, you'll experience tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Through harvest season, through winter's rest, through spring's planting, and summer's growth, the same work, the same challenges, the same small joys. Picture the winter months, when the fields lie frozen and empty. Your work then is different but no less demanding. Repairing tools that broke during harvest, mending fences, cutting wood for fuel. The cold seeps into everything, making each task harder, each movement stiffer. But you adapt. You've always adapted. In winter, you spend more time indoors. The family huddles close to the fire, conserving warmth and fuel. Agnes spins wool and weaves cloth. You carve wooden spoons or repair shoes. The children learn their letters if you're fortunate enough to know them, or more likely, they learn the skills they'll need for their own future. Farming for the boys, household management for the girls. Spring brings its own rhythm, ploughing the fields, breaking up the soil that's been resting all winter. Sowing seeds, praying for rain but not too much rain, watching for the first green shoots, protecting seedlings from birds and insects and the 100 other threats that can destroy a crop before it has a chance to grow. Summer means weeding and watching and hoping. The grain grows tall, vegetables flourish in the garden, animals graze in pastures that are finally green again. You work from dawn to dusk, but at least you're warm. At least the days are long and there's light to work by. Then, harvest. The season you're in now, the culmination of a year's worth of labor. Everything depends on these few weeks. Get the grain in safely, and you'll eat through winter. Lose it to rain or hail or early frost, and you'll face hunger. No pressure, except everything depends on it. After harvest comes autumn. Slaughtering animals that you can't feed through winter, preserving meat by salting or smoking it, gathering the last vegetables before frost kills them, making sure every crack in your walls is sealed, every leak in your roof is patched, preparing for the cold months ahead, and then winter again, the cycle complete, ready to begin again. This is the framework of your existence. Not individual days, but seasons. Not single tasks, but patterns that repeat endlessly. You live this way. Your children will live this way. There's something deeply human about this connection to seasons, to the land, to cycles of growth and rest. Modern life has lost that rhythm, but in your time, in your place, it's everything. You don't fight against nature. You work with it, adapting to its demands, accepting its gifts, enduring its hardships. The village priest would tell you this is God's plan, that each person has their place in the divine order, that nobles rule because God willed it, that you labor in the fields because that's your purpose, your calling. And maybe you believe that, or maybe you just accept it because what choice do you have? But there's dignity in your labor, whether anyone acknowledges it or not. You feed people. The bread that ends up on the Lord's table, you grew that grain. The wool that makes his fine clothes, your sheep produced that. The taxes that fund his armies and his buildings and his comfortable life, you paid those through your sweat and effort. Without peasants like you, the whole system collapses. Knights can't fight if they're not fed. Lords can't rule if there's no one to pay taxes. Priests can't pray if there's no one to support them. You're the foundation that everything else is built on. Not that anyone thanks you for it. That's not how your world works. You're expected to labor, expected to obey, expected to be grateful for the privilege of working yourself to exhaustion for a fraction of what you produce. But on quiet evenings, when the day's work is done and your family is safe and fed, you know the truth. You're the one who matters. You're the one who makes it all possible. Without you, there is no medieval world. There are just empty fields and hungry people and chaos. That knowledge doesn't change anything about your daily life. Tomorrow you'll still wake before dawn, still ache from hard labor, still worry about harvests and whether you can afford to replace William's shoes before winter. But knowing your worth, even if no one else acknowledges it, that sustains something in you, some small pride that gets you through the hardest days. Your wife knows it too. Agnes works as hard as you do, just in different ways. Managing the household, feeding the family, making clothes, tending the garden, brewing ale, caring for children, and 100 other tasks that never end. If you're the foundation, she's the mortar that holds everything together. Medieval society doesn't value women's work the way it should, but try running a household without a woman and see how long you last. Try feeding a family without someone to cook the food, preserve the harvest, manage the resources. Try raising children without a mother's care and teaching. Agnes knows things you don't. Which herbs cure which ailments. How to turn a small amount of grain into enough bread to feed 5 people. How to stretch resources through lean times. How to comfort a sick child or settle a dispute between siblings. How to keep a household functioning when everything seems to be falling apart. You couldn't do what she does. You freely admit that. Just as she couldn't do the heavy field labor that you manage, your partners in this life, each contributing skills the other lacks. That's not equality by modern standards. The law sees you as her master, her owner in some ways. But the daily reality is more complex. You need each other, rely on each other, survive through mutual effort. The children are learning this too. William watches you work and learns what it means to be a man in your world. Strength, yes, but also persistence. The ability to keep going when your body wants to quit. The skill to do hard work well. The judgment to make decisions that affect your family's survival. Emma watches her mother and learns what it means to be a woman. Household management, food preparation, textile work, childcare, the 1,000 small skills that keep a family alive and functioning. She's 9 now, but in a few years she'll be ready to marry and run her own household. The skills she's learning now will determine how well she manages that responsibility. Little Thomas is still young enough to just be a child. He plays and learns and grows, but soon enough he too will be pulled into the rhythm of work that defines peasant life. If he's the youngest son, he might inherit nothing and need to find his own way. Or maybe he'll become an apprentice to some craftsman, learning a trade that doesn't depend on land. The future is uncertain for all of them. Disease could strike at any time. Famine is always a possibility. War, though distant, sometimes reaches even small villages like yours. You can't protect them from everything. All you can do is teach them what they need to know, hope they're strong enough to face whatever comes, and trust in God to watch over them when you can't. That trust in God is woven through everything in medieval life. The church bells that mark the hours, the prayers before meals, the holy days that break up the year, the rituals around birth and marriage and death. Religion isn't separate from daily life. It's part of the fabric of existence. You're not particularly pious by the standards of monks or priests. You don't spend hours in prayer or contemplate theological mysteries, but you believe in God, in the saints, in heaven and hell. It's as natural as believing in the sun or the seasons. The world makes sense because God ordered it. Your suffering has meaning because it's part of God's plan. Your hard work will be rewarded, if not in this life, then in the next. The priest reminds you of this every Sunday. You're required to attend Mass. It's not optional. Missing church without a very good reason can get you in serious trouble with both religious and secular authorities. So, every Sunday, you clean up as best you can, put on your better clothes, and walk to the village church. The service is in Latin, which you don't understand. The priest drones on about things that seem disconnected from your daily concerns. But you stand when you're supposed to stand, kneel when you're supposed to kneel, repeat the responses you've memorized even if you don't know what they mean. The real value of church isn't the service itself, it's the community, seeing your neighbors, exchanging news, maintaining the social bonds that hold the village together. You work alongside these people, share resources with them, rely on them in times of trouble. Church is where that community affirms itself, reminds itself that you're all in this together. After Mass, there's often time for talking. The priest might make announcements about upcoming holy days or remind people about their tithes. The reeve might discuss village business, decisions about when to plant or which fields to leave fallow next year. People share news about births or deaths or marriages. Sometimes there's tension, disputes over boundary markers between fields, arguments about who owes what to whom, accusations of theft or lying. The village has ways of handling these conflicts. Public shaming for minor offences, fines for more serious ones, the Lord's court for the worst cases. You try to avoid trouble. Keep your head down. Do your work. Don't make enemies. It's a small village. Everyone knows everyone. Grudges can last for generations. Better to be peaceable, even when you're in the right. But you're not a doormat. If someone tries to cheat you, you'll stand up for yourself. If someone threatens your family, you'll defend them. There's a balance to maintain between being agreeable and being taken advantage of. You've spent 35 years learning where that line is. The village is its own small world. Most people never travel more than a few miles from where they were born. The next village over is foreign territory. The nearest town might as well be on the moon for all the chance you have of visiting it. You did go to town once, when you were younger. Walked there to sell some wool at market. The experience was overwhelming. So many people, so many buildings. Smells and sounds and sights you'd never encountered. You sold your wool, bought a few things you needed, and couldn't wait to get home. The village might be small and limited, but it's familiar, safe, yours. That's the thing about peasant life. It's constrained, yes. Your options are limited. Your freedom is restricted. You'll never travel to distant lands or learn to read or own anything of significant value. But within those constraints, there's a life worth living, family, community, work that matters, the satisfaction of doing something well. You've never questioned whether there might be a different way to live. This is the world as it is. Has been. Always will be. As far as you know. Change isn't something that happens in your lifetime. Maybe a new lord takes over. Maybe the priest changes. Maybe there's a particularly bad winter or a particularly good harvest. But the fundamental pattern? That never changes. Except that's not quite true. Things do change, just slowly. Your grandfather's life was harder than yours in some ways. He worked land that was less fertile, used tools that were less efficient. Your father's generation saw some improvements. Better plows, a few new crops introduced from elsewhere, small changes that made life marginally easier. And your life, while still hard, is different from your father's in subtle ways. You own your own land through rent rather than being bound to it through serfdom, at least in this region. You have a few more possessions, slightly more freedom of movement, not much, but enough to notice if you think about it. Your children's lives might be different again. Not dramatically. They'll still be peasants, still farm land, still work hard for modest returns, but maybe a little better, maybe a little easier. Progress happens slowly in your world, but it does happen. As you lie in your bed, thinking about the day that's past and the day that will come tomorrow, these thoughts drift through your mind like clouds across the sky. Not profound revelations, just the quiet contemplations of a tired man grateful for rest. Agnes is already asleep beside you, her breathing deep and regular. The children are quiet in their corner. Outside, the village has settled into night. The same night that's fallen over this place for hundreds of years. The same stars your ancestors saw, the same darkness, the same peace. Tomorrow the rooster will crow. You'll wake before dawn. The cycle will begin again. Grain to cut, work to do, a family to feed. This is your life. This is what it means to be a medieval peasant. Not glorious, not easy, but honest. Real, connected to the land and the seasons and the endless rhythm of work and rest and renewal. Your eyes grow heavy. The aches in your body are fading into the background. Sleep is coming, that deep, dreamless sleep of someone who's earned their rest through honest labor. One more thought drifts through your fading consciousness. Tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. Another day. Another chance to do what needs to be done. To care for your family. To work your land. To live your life the best way you know how. That's enough. That's everything. And so you sleep, there in your simple house, in your simple village, living your simple life. A life that history will barely remember. A life that seems insignificant in the grand sweep of time. But a life that mattered to you, to your family, to your small corner of the medieval world. The grain you cut today will become bread. The bread will feed people. Your labor ripples outward in ways you'll never see, touching lives you'll never know. That's the hidden truth of peasant life. You're not just surviving, you're sustaining. Your work is the foundation that civilization is built on. Without farmers like you, there are no cities, no churches, no castles, no culture. You're the reason the medieval world exists, the reason it functions, the reason it endures. Sleep well, hard-working soul. Rest your aching body. Tomorrow will come soon enough, bringing new challenges, new work, new reasons to rise and face another day. But tonight, you've earned your rest. You've done what needed to be done, and that, in the end, is all anyone can ask. The stars wheel overhead, the village dreams, the fields wait patiently for tomorrow's labor, and you, anonymous peasant of the Middle Ages, you sleep the sleep of the just. Your story is one of millions just like it, forgotten by history, unrecorded in chronicles, but real, true, important in its own quiet way. This is the real medieval world, not knights and quests and romance, but ordinary people doing extraordinary work just to live another day. And there's beauty in that, dignity in that, worth in that. So rest now. Let your mind settle like dust after a long day's labor. Let your breathing slow and deepen. Let sleep claim you as it claims everyone eventually, noble and peasant alike. Tomorrow belongs to the future. Tonight belongs to rest. Our journey through this medieval day comes to a gentle close. We've walked through dawn and daylight, through labor and rest, through a life both harder and simpler than anything we know today. You are connected to this history. Every time you eat bread, you're connected to farmers who planted grain. Every time you feel bone-tired after a hard day's work, you're connected to laborers who knew that feeling intimately. The medieval peasant's life was constrained by circumstances we can barely imagine. But within those constraints, they found meaning, purpose, connection, the same things we all search for, whatever century we live in. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts settle like evening mist over quiet fields. Let your body relax into the comfort of your bed. You've journeyed back through time tonight. Now it's time to return to rest, to let this medieval day fade into the gentle embrace of sleep. Sleep well, traveler. Consider the skills that peasant possessed. Skills we've lost in our modern world. The ability to read weather by observing clouds and wind and the behavior of animals. Knowing which plants were edible, which were medicinal, which were poisonous. Understanding soil by its color and texture. Predicting the best time to plant by watching the moon and stars. These weren't written down in books. They were passed from person to person, generation to generation, through observation and practice. A father teaching his son which wood makes the best handles for tools. A mother teaching her daughter which herbs ease a fever. Knowledge earned through centuries of trial and error, success and failure. When you cut grain with a sickle, the motion looks simple, but getting it right, making clean cuts without wasting stalks or dulling your blade unnecessarily, that takes years to learn. The angle of the cut, the pressure applied, the rhythm that lets you work for hours without exhausting yourself. William is learning these things now, but he won't master them until he's worked many more harvests. The same applies to every task in peasant life. Baking bread that rises properly and doesn't burn, brewing ale that ferments correctly and doesn't spoil, weaving cloth tight enough to be warm but not so tight it's stiff, thatching a roof so it sheds rain but doesn't blow away in wind, building a fence that keeps animals in without using more wood than necessary. Every single thing requires skill, knowledge, experience. The medieval peasant wasn't uneducated in any meaningful sense. They knew vast amounts about the specific things that mattered for survival. They might not read Latin or understand theology, but they understood their world with an intimacy we've completely lost. Take bread, for instance. When Agnes bakes bread, she's performing a complex chemical process. She doesn't know about yeast cells or gluten structures, but she knows that dough needs to be kneaded for a certain amount of time, that it needs to rise in a warm place, that the oven needs to be exactly the right temperature. She learned this from her mother, who learned from her grandmother, going back generations. The knowledge is empirical, tested through countless loaves over hundreds of years. It works because it works. The theory doesn't matter. Your tools are simple but effective. Your sickle, for instance, just a curved blade attached to a wooden handle, but that blade is carefully forged and sharpened. The curve is exactly right for cutting grain efficiently. The handle is shaped to fit your hand comfortably. It's a tool perfected over centuries of use. The same with your plough. Wooden, pulled by an ox if you're fortunate enough to own one, pulled by you if you're not. But the plough's shape, the angle of the blade, the way it's balanced, all of that represents accumulated knowledge about how to break soil effectively. These tools are valuable. They cost money you don't have much of. They require maintenance and care. When a tool breaks, it's a crisis. You have to repair it yourself or pay a blacksmith, which might mean going into debt or trading something you'd rather keep. So, you care for your tools the way you care for family members. You clean them after use, store them properly, sharpen them regularly, keep them out of rain and away from rust. Your tools are how you survive. Treating them carelessly would be like treating your own hands carelessly. The blacksmith in your village is one of the most important people in the community. He makes and repairs tools, shoes, horses, creates the iron fittings that hold everything together. His skills are specialized, valuable, respected. He's not quite a peasant, not quite a craftsman of the urban guilds, something in between, essential to everyone. You've known the current blacksmith, John, your entire life. His father was the blacksmith before him. His son is learning the trade now, just as William is learning farming from you. This is how skills pass down. Through families, through apprenticeships, through the careful transmission of knowledge from one generation to the next. When your sickle blade cracked during harvest 2 years ago, you took it to John. He examined it, determined it could be repaired, and did the work while you waited. You couldn't afford to be without a sickle during harvest. Every day of delay risks losing grain to weather or pests. John heated the metal in his forge until it glowed orange. Then he hammered it, each blow precise and measured, reshaping the metal, closing the crack, strengthening the blade. The sound of his hammer on anvil is one of the defining sounds of village life. Rhythmic, steady, purposeful. When he was done, the blade was better than before. Stronger, sharper. You paid him with grain from your own stores, not money. Most transactions in your village happen through barter. Money is scarce. Grain, wool, eggs, labor, these are what you trade. This barter economy creates webs of obligation and reciprocity throughout the village. You owe John for the sickle repair. He owes the miller for grinding his grain. The miller owes you for help repairing his roof last spring. Everyone owes everyone else something, creating bonds that hold the community together. It's not always friendly. People argue about what's fair, what's owed, who did what for whom, but the basic system works because it has to. In a world without banks or currency or formal contracts, trust and reciprocity are what make economic life possible. The lord of the manor exists somewhat outside this system. He takes rent from you, taxes in the form of grain or labor, but he's supposed to provide things in return. Protection, theoretically, though from what is often unclear. Justice through his court. Permission to use common resources like forests and streams. The relationship between peasants and lords is complicated, not as simple as oppression and submission, more like mutual dependency with very unequal power dynamics. You need the lord's permission to farm the land. He needs your labor to make the land productive. Neither can do without the other, but he definitely has more leverage in the relationship. Still, there are limits to what lords can demand. Push too hard, and peasants flee to other manors where treatment is better, or they simply work less efficiently. Or crops mysteriously fail more often than they should. Resistance in medieval villages is usually subtle, passive, but real. Lord Edmund, your current lord, is neither particularly good nor particularly bad. He demands what he's entitled to according to custom, sometimes a bit more, but not so much that people revolt. He maintains the manor reasonably well, provides a court where disputes can be settled, doesn't randomly seize property or abuse his power too flagrantly. You've seen worse lords in neighboring villages, men who squeeze every possible penny from their tenants, who demand unreasonable labor, who treat peasants like livestock. By comparison, Edmund is tolerable. That's about as much as you can hope for. The church is another center of power in village life. The priest, Father Michael, represents spiritual authority. He's the one who can baptize your children, marry you to your wife, give you last rites when you're dying. He's the intermediary between you and God, at least according to church teaching. The church building itself is the largest structure in the village. Stone, when most houses are wood and thatch, built to last for centuries. It represents stability, permanence, the eternal nature of God in contrast to the temporary nature of human life. Inside, the church is dim and cool, even on hot summer days. The walls are painted with scenes from the Bible, pictures for people who can't read words, the stations of the cross, the Last Judgment, saints and sinners, heaven and hell, visual reminders of what awaits after death. You find these images both comforting and frightening. Comforting because they promise that suffering in this life will be rewarded in the next. Frightening because they also promise punishment for sin. And who can claim to be without sin? Father Michael preaches about obedience, about accepting your station in life, about how the poor will inherit heaven while the rich struggle like camels through needles' eyes. It's a message designed to keep people content with very little, but it also contains genuine comfort. The idea that your hard life has meaning, that it's part of God's plan, that better things await in the hereafter, that helps people endure. You're not sure how much you believe it, but you're not sure how much that matters. Belief and practice aren't the same thing. You go to church because it's expected. You observe the holy days because that's what everyone does. You baptize your children and confess your sins and take communion because that's how you participate in the community. Whether God actually cares about any of this, whether heaven and hell are real or just stories to control people, you honestly don't know, and thinking too hard about it seems both pointless and dangerous. Pointless because you'll never know for sure until you die. Dangerous because the church doesn't appreciate people questioning its authority. So you participate. You perform the rituals. You maintain the outward appearance of faith. And if doubt whispers in your mind sometimes, well, you keep that to yourself. The holy days do break up the year pleasantly. Christmas, Easter, saints' feast days scattered throughout the calendar. On these days, work stops. You put on your better clothes. You go to church for special services. And afterward, often there's celebration, better food, sometimes dancing or games, all flowing more freely than usual. These celebrations are important. They're the rare times when life isn't just work and survival, when you can relax, enjoy yourself, remember that existence has pleasures as well as pains. The church might organize them for its own purposes, but that doesn't make them less valuable to you. Your children especially love holy days. Thomas doesn't understand theology or sin or salvation, but he understands that feast days mean sweet cakes and games with other children. That's religion at his level, and it's enough. Underneath it all, always, is the land itself. The fields you work, the soil you depend on, the crops you pray will grow. Everything comes back to this fundamental relationship between human labor and the earth. Your fields have been worked for generations. The soil is known, understood. You know which parts drain poorly and get waterlogged in heavy rain. You know which sections are particularly fertile. You know where rocks lie just under the surface, ready to break plow blades if you're not careful. This knowledge is specific to these exact fields. Move to a different village, and you'd have to learn new land, different soil, different drainage patterns, different challenges. This is one reason why people don't move easily. Your expertise is tied to this particular place. The three-field system organizes your agriculture. One field planted with winter wheat, one with spring crops like barley or oats, one left fallow to recover. Each year the rotation shifts. This year's wheat field becomes next year's fallow. This spreads out the work and, more importantly, maintains soil fertility. Leaving fields fallow seems wasteful when you're always short of food, but experience has proven it necessary. Plant the same field year after year without rest, and yields decline dramatically. The soil gets exhausted. Crops fail, so you sacrifice short-term production for long-term sustainability. Modern agriculture would solve this with fertilizer. You solve it with crop rotation and animal manure and patience. It works, but it means you can never use all your land at once. Always a third lies unused, waiting to recover its strength. The common lands supplement your private fields. Forest where you can gather firewood and forage for mushrooms and nuts. Meadows where your animals can graze. Streams where you might catch fish if you're lucky and quick. These resources are shared by the entire village, managed collectively according to customs that go back further than anyone remembers. There are rules about common lands. You can't just take whatever you want. You can gather fallen wood but not cut living trees without permission. You can graze a certain number of animals but not so many that you overgraze the pasture. You can fish but not with nets that catch everything, including future breeding stock. These rules make sense. They prevent the tragedy of everyone taking as much as possible until nothing's left. They ensure resources renew themselves. They're enforced partly by the Lord's officials, but mostly by community pressure. If you violate the rules, your neighbors will let you know. Reputation matters in a small village. Being known as someone who takes more than their fair share makes life difficult. Sometimes disputes arise about common resources. Two families claim the same fallen tree. Someone's pigs destroy someone else's garden. These conflicts are brought before the manorial court, where they're resolved according to custom and the Lord's judgment. Sometimes fairly, sometimes not, but at least there's a process. The manor court handles other matters too: accusations of theft, disputes over land boundaries, enforcement of rent payments. It's not justice as we'd recognize it. The Lord is judge and jury, and his interests don't always align with fairness, but it's better than nothing, better than pure might makes right. You've been to manor court a few times. Once to testify about a boundary dispute between neighbors. Once when you were accused of letting your pigs damage someone's crops, which was true, though it was an accident. You paid a fine, made things right, moved on. These interactions with authority are nerve-wracking. You have so little power. If the Lord decides against you, there's no appeal, no higher court, just acceptance of the judgment and hope that next time things go better. This powerlessness is perhaps the hardest part of peasant life. Not the physical labor, which is what it is, but the constant awareness that your fate depends on the whims of people who don't care about you as an individual. But that's thinking too much about things you can't change. Better to focus on what you can control. Your work, your family, the small choices that define your daily existence. You've known real hardship. The year your father died. The winter when illness swept through and you lost Emma's twin brother. The harvest that failed when you were 20. These experiences taught you the fragility of security, the importance of preparation, the value of community support because your neighbors helped when things were worst. This mutual aid is real. When John the blacksmith's wife was sick last year, several families brought food. When old Thomas couldn't manage his fields alone, younger men helped with his harvest. That's how communities survive. You try to be kind when you can. Share when you have extra, not because you're particularly virtuous, but because you understand how much these things matter. You are not important to history. Centuries from now, no one will know your name. Your life, from a historical perspective, doesn't matter at all. But from your perspective, from Agnes's perspective, from your children's perspective, your life is everything. It's the whole world. The love you share, the work you do, the small joys you experience. These aren't footnotes to someone else's story. They are the story, and maybe that's okay. Maybe being part of history isn't as important as living your life well by your own standards. The darkness is complete now. Even the embers in the hearth have faded. Somewhere outside, an owl calls, hunting, living its own life according to its own rhythms. Tomorrow will come whether you're ready or not. More grain to cut, more work to do. But tonight, you're just a man lying in darkness, aware of his place in the world, content with what he has, even while wishing for more. It's a peasant's wisdom. Not philosophical or abstract, but practical and deeply felt. This is life. These are the terms. Make the best of it. And with that thought, finally, you let go. Let sleep come. Let tomorrow wait. Let your tired body rest and your busy mind quiet. This is where our journey ends, traveller, in a humble house in a small village in a time long past. But the lessons of this life echo across the centuries. When you work hard at something that matters, you're connected to every person who ever did the same. When you care for people you love, you're part of a story as old as humanity. The medieval peasant's life was harder than ours, in almost every way, but it was still a life worth living, still a life with meaning and purpose, and moments of genuine happiness. So as you drift towards sleep in your own time, remember that man in his straw mattress centuries ago. Remember that he worked and loved and hoped just as you do. Let your breathing slow. Let your muscles relax. Let the weight of the day settle gently into peace. Sleep well, friend. Consider the changing seasons and how they transform peasant life entirely. Winter, when we've only touched on briefly, is its own distinct world. The fields lie dormant, covered in frost or snow. The work shifts indoors to maintenance and repair tasks that were postponed during the busy growing season. Winter mornings are darker than summer ones. The sun rises late and sets early. You work by firelight and rushlight, those small flames from rushes dipped in fat that provide minimal illumination but are cheaper than candles. The flickering light makes every task harder. Sewing requires squinting. Carving demands extra care. Even eating becomes slightly more challenging when you can barely see your bowl. The cold is relentless. Not the kind of cold you can escape by turning up a thermostat. Cold that seeps through walls, rises from the floor, hangs in the air like a physical presence. You dress in layers. Multiple shirts, wool leggings, whatever you can pile on, and still you shiver. Agnes keeps the fire burning constantly in winter. It's the heart of the house, the source of warmth and light, and the ability to cook food. She feeds it carefully, conserving fuel while maintaining enough heat to keep everyone from freezing. It's a delicate balance. Too much wood, and you'll run out before spring. Too little, and you'll freeze. The animals suffer too. Your chickens hunker down in their shelter, barely laying eggs. The pig stays in its pen, burning its fat reserves, just staying warm. The sheep huddle together for warmth, their thick wool protecting them but not completely. You check on them multiple times each day in winter. Make sure they have water that hasn't frozen. Provide what food you can spare. Worry about whether they'll survive until spring. Losing livestock in winter is common. You've had chickens freeze to death, a pig that sickened and died one particularly harsh January. Each loss is a financial disaster because you can't replace them until spring at the earliest. Food in winter is different too. No fresh vegetables except what you manage to store. Cabbage and turnips and onions, kept in a root cellar if you're fortunate enough to have one, just piled in a corner if you're not. They shrivel and soften as winter progresses, but they're still calories, still nutrients, still better than nothing. Meat is more available in winter, ironically. The autumn slaughter provides salted pork and preserved beef. Not fresh, and the salt makes it tough and difficult to eat, but protein nonetheless. You ration it carefully. A little meat in the pottage most days, making it stretch as far as possible. Bread remains the staple. Agnes bakes less frequently in winter because heating the oven uses significant fuel, so she bakes larger batches, and you eat stale bread for days until the next baking. You soften it in ale or pottage. This is the rhythm of winter, conserving resources, enduring cold, waiting for spring. The days blur together. You track time by holy days more than any other method. Christmas, Epiphany, Candlemas. Each one a marker in the long winter wait. Your children get restless. They're used to running outside, playing in fields and forests. Winter confines them to the house, where space is limited and tempers fray. Thomas and Emma squabble. Agnes scolds them. You try to distract them with tasks, with stories, with anything to pass the time. William actually has it easier. He's old enough to accompany you on winter work, cutting firewood in the forest, repairing fences damaged by autumn storms, checking on livestock. The work is cold and hard, but at least it's something to do. Activity helps winter pass faster than sitting idle. The forest in winter is hauntingly beautiful. Bare trees creating intricate patterns against grey skies, snow muffling sound, making everything quiet. You and William walk through it, searching for fallen branches suitable for firewood. Living trees are forbidden without special permission, but dead wood is fair game. You find a good-sized branch, dead but still solid. Together you drag it back to the village, where you'll spend an afternoon sawing it into manageable pieces. The work warms you despite the cold air. Back home, you split the wood with an axe. Each swing requires effort. The wood resists, then suddenly splits with a satisfying crack. The pieces stack neatly against the house wall, ready to feed the fire over the coming weeks. Agnes is inside, spinning wool. This is quintessential winter work for women, taking raw fleece, cleaning it, combing it, spinning it into thread. Hour after hour of repetitive motion, the spindle turning, the thread growing longer. Emma helps sometimes, though she's still learning. Her thread is uneven, thick in some places and thin in others. But she's improving. This is how skills pass from mother to daughter, through working together, day after day. Little Thomas can't sit still long enough for such delicate work. He plays with the wooden toys you've carved for him, a horse, a cow, a simple cart with wheels that actually turn. He creates elaborate games that make sense only to him. As winter progresses, the stored food dwindles. By February, this is the hungry time. You eat less, smaller portions. Your stomach growls more often, but you endure because what choice do you have? Finally, blessedly, spring arrives. The days lengthen, the cold eases, snow melts, and you can begin preparing for another growing season. Ploughing is the first major task, breaking up soil that's been dormant all winter. The freshly turned earth smells rich and fertile. You run it through your fingers, judging its readiness for planting. Planting itself is meditative work. Walking the furrows, dropping seeds at regular intervals, barley in this field, oats in that one, peas in another section. Agnes plants the kitchen garden, cabbages and onions and beans and herbs. She spaces them carefully, knowing how much room each plant needs. This is a hopeful time. The worst of winter is behind you. Food is still scarce, but improvement is coming. Every day brings warmer weather, longer light, visible signs of growth. Easter, the most important religious festival, celebrating resurrection, rebirth. It resonates deeply where resurrection happens visibly every spring. You attend Mass with the whole family. The church is decorated with early flowers. Afterwards, there's a feast. Meat, fresh bread, eggs, even a little cheese and butter. After the feast, there's dancing in the village square. Musicians play pipes and drums. You dance with Agnes, holding her hands. She laughs, genuinely happy. These moments sustain you through harder times. Summer brings long days, hot sun, constant growth in the fields. The crops shoot up, taking advantage of warmth and rain. You walk through your strips daily, checking progress, pulling weeds. This is anxious waiting. The grain is growing well, but anything could still go wrong. Too much rain and it rots. Too little and it withers. But this year looks good. The weather is cooperating. By midsummer, you're cautiously optimistic. Barring catastrophe, this will be a good harvest. The actual harvest is the culmination of the year's work. Everything depends on these few weeks. Every day cutting grain until your hands blister and your back gives out. The whole village works together during harvest, helping each other, moving from strip to strip, bringing in grain as quickly as possible before weather can ruin it. You bring in your last strip on a hot afternoon in late summer. The satisfaction is immense. Your strips are cleared. The grain is cut and bundled and stacked. You did it. Another year. Another harvest. The threshing comes next, beating the grain with flails to separate kernels from chaff. William works beside you, learning this skill too. His flail work is improving. You feel pride watching him. After threshing comes winnowing. Agnes and Emma do most of this work, tossing and gathering, until the grain is clean. Finally, you measure your harvest. You count carefully. Some goes to the Lord as rent, some to the church as tithe, some you keep for planting. Some get stored for food. This year, you're lucky. 2 sacks extra. You'll take them to market and sell them. Market day is an event. You walk 5 miles to the nearest market town. Hundreds of people, dozens of stalls, the noise and crowd overwhelming after quiet village life. You find a grain merchant and negotiate. Finally settle on a fair price. With money in hand, you buy salt, iron nails, wool cloth. You also buy a small luxury, sugar. Just a tiny amount, expensive beyond reason, but special. You'll give it to Agnes as a surprise. Back home, you present your purchases. Agnes examines the cloth, approving. Then you produce the sugar. Her eyes widen. She hugs you, touched by this small extravagance. That night, she makes honey cakes with a pinch of sugar. The sweetness is overwhelming. The children's faces light up. You sit by the fire, eating your cake slowly, savoring each bite. This is what you work for. Not grand rewards, but these small moments of abundance and joy. The autumn brings different work, planting winter wheat, repairing the house before winter, slaughtering the pig and preserving the meat. The pig slaughter is a major event. Several men hold it while one delivers the killing blow. The pig squeals, there's blood everywhere, but it's necessary. Agnes and the other women take over after the kill. They butcher the carcass with remarkable efficiency. Nothing is wasted. The meat is salted, the fat rendered into lard. By evening, you have dozens of pounds of preserved pork. This represents survival through winter. You look at it with satisfaction mixed with relief. The year is winding down. The fields are harvested or planted. The firewood is stacked. The house is repaired. The food is preserved. You've done everything you can to prepare for winter. And so the seasons turn, year after year. The same work, the same struggles, the same small triumphs. This is your life. This is what it means to be a medieval peasant. You are one person among millions living this life. Your individual story is unremarkable, but the collective story, the story of all these millions working the land, feeding civilization, that story is profound. Knights need to eat. Lords need rents. Priests need tithes. Everyone depends on the food you grow. You are the base of the pyramid that supports everyone else. Not glamorous, rarely acknowledged, but essential. So as this meditation draws to a close, remember this. The people who seem least important are often most essential. The work that seems most ordinary is often most vital. You, medieval peasant, with your aching back and calloused hands and simple dreams, you matter. Your work matters, your life matters. That's worth something. That's worth everything. And now, traveller, let's return to that quiet moment we began with. That pre-dawn darkness when consciousness returns. Imagine being that person one more time, feeling the straw beneath you, hearing your family breathing around you, knowing what the day will bring because every day brings the same things. There's something meditative about such predictability. Modern life is full of novelty, constant change. Medieval peasant life was the opposite. Same tasks, same people, same place. That creates a deep connection to place, to community. Your village was your world. You knew every person in it, every house, every field. Modern people often struggle with identity. Who am I? What's my purpose? These questions would have seemed strange to a medieval peasant. Your purpose was obvious. Work the land, feed your family, pass skills to the next generation. This clarity came at the cost of choice. You couldn't decide to be something else. Your life's path was determined largely by birth, but it also removed the burden of infinite possibility. This isn't to romanticize medieval peasant life. It was hard, often unfair, filled with suffering that could have been prevented. People died of treatable diseases, went hungry when there was enough food. But within that unjust system, real people lived real lives. They loved their children. They took pride in work done well. They found joy in small pleasures. That humanity, that fundamental human experience, connects us to them across the centuries. When you feel tired after a long day, when you worry about providing for your family, when you share a meal with people you love, you're experiencing the same things that medieval peasant experienced. This is what history should teach us. Not just dates and events, but connection. The recognition that people in the past were people, like us. Your life might be very different from a medieval peasant's, but you're both human, both mortal, both doing your best with whatever circumstances you were born into. That's the real lesson of this journey. The fundamental human sameness beneath surface differences. You can draw strength from that. When your own life feels overwhelming, remember the medieval peasant rising before dawn, working until their body screamed for rest, and somehow still finding reasons to smile. If they could endure their world, you can endure yours. Different challenges, but the same fundamental requirement. Keep going, do your work, care for your people, find meaning where you can. So let this medieval day settle into your mind like a gentle memory. Let it remind you of human resilience, of the dignity in honest labor, of connection across time and space. And now, finally, let yourself fully relax. Let your breathing deepen and slow. Let the images from this journey fade like a dream fading upon waking. You've walked through an entire medieval day. From pre-dawn darkness through harvest work through nighttime rest, you've experienced a life both alien and intimate. That's enough journeying for one night. Now there's only sleep, only rest, only the gentle darkness that claims us all eventually. Your bed is soft, your life is easier than that peasant's, in almost every way. Be grateful for that, but also be grateful for what that peasant can teach you about endurance, about finding joy in small things. Carry that forward, into your own tomorrow, into your own challenges, into your own version of the endless human story. But for tonight, just rest, just breathe, just let go of everything except this moment of peace. The medieval peasant is sleeping in their rough bed centuries ago. You're sleeping in your comfortable bed in the present. Both of you are human. Both of you are part of the same long story. Both of you deserve rest. So sleep well, friend. Sleep deep, sleep peacefully. The past has been honored. The present awaits. But right now, there's only the gentle embrace of sleep. Thank you for this journey. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for recognizing the humanity in people history forgot. May your dreams be gentle. May your rest be deep. May tomorrow bring you strength renewed. Good night. Sleep well, until we wander through history together again.